right, everyone, buckle up because the cricket world just got flipped on its head. And we are diving right into it, no time to waste. We're talking about a massive shakeup mid-season in the 2025 IPL. Specifically, the Chennai Super Kings. This news is the kind of news that makes you want to jump up and do a victory dance.
Yeah, it's definitely sending shockwaves through the entire cricket community. You provided some incredible articles and analysis for this deep dive, going way beyond the initial headlines. So our mission today is to really understand what's going on with MS Dhoni's return as captain. This story has immediate impact, of course, but also raises some really intriguing long-term questions for CSK.
Absolutely. We know you, our listeners, are craving the inside scoop and you want it quickly, but you also want the full picture. So let's set the scene. The 2025 IPL season has been a bit of a nightmare for CSK fans. The Super Kings are sitting in ninth place in the league table, which is basically unheard of for them, with only one win from their first 5 matches. This is not the CSK we're used to seeing, right?
Yeah, it's been a really rough patch for a team with such a dominant history.
But hold on tight, because on April 10th, 2025, the internet basically exploded. MS Dhoni is back as captain of CSK. I mean, what? Thala is back in charge. This is so huge. Let's go.
I think your reaction perfectly captures the sentiment of pretty much every CSK fan out there. The official reason for this dramatic shift is that the current captain, Ruturaj Gaikwad, has been ruled out for the rest of the season. He's got an elbow fracture.
Oh no, that's awful news for Gaikwad. What happened exactly? How did he get injured?
Reports say it's a hairline fracture in something called the radial neck of his elbow. It seems like it happened during their match against the Rajasthan Royals back on March 30th in Guwahati. It's actually interesting some sources say it was Tushar Deshpande's bowling that caused it, while others point to Jofra Archer. Either way, that's the match where the injury happened.
So wait, he was playing with a fracture for almost 2 weeks before they made this announcement? That's crazy.
It really is. And what's even more incredible is that Gaikwad actually played through the pain in their next 2 matches. He toughed it out against Delhi Capitals and Punjab Kings before an MRI finally confirmed the fracture. Coach Stephen Fleming even publicly praised Gaikwad for his commitment and his resilience during that time.
Wow, you've got to respect that level of dedication to the team. So Gaikwad's out, and Thala is back leading the charge. But something super weird jumped out at me. They called Dhoni an uncapped player. Like, what's that about? Dhoni is anything but uncapped.
Right. That was such a strange thing to hear Coach Fleming use that phrase, uncapped player, when he was talking about Dhoni taking over. And of course, this has nothing to do with Dhoni's actual experience, which is legendary. It's all about a weird rule by the BCCI, that's the governing body for cricket in India. Players who've retired from international cricket for 5 years or more get classified as uncapped for certain administrative things within the IPL. And Dhoni, well, he retired from international cricket back in August of 2020.
So it's just a technicality, a weird quirk of the rules. It still feels so bizarre to hear someone call Dhoni uncapped. It's MS Dhoni, the legend.
Exactly. It feels like Fleming was intentionally downplaying it. Maybe even poking a little fun at the whole situation. It's like, yeah, the rule technically applies, but come on, it's Dhoni we're talking about. It's like calling Superman Clark Kent technically correct, but it totally misses the point. Some people are wondering if this might have some tiny implications for future auctions or player retention, but honestly, the real impact seems to be purely in the phrasing itself. It's just this funny little moment that's got everyone talking.
It's definitely gotten everyone talking, but this whole captaincy situation, it feels like a bit of a recurring theme with CSK lately. It's not the first time they've switched things up mid-season.
That's a really good observation. You're right, this isn't an isolated incident. Switching captains, and even going back to a previous captain, it's become kind of a pattern for CSK over the past 2 seasons. It really highlights the unique situation they're in with a leader as influential and impactful as Dhoni.
Yeah, it's unprecedented. So let's rewind a bit. What does CSK's recent captaincy history look like?
Well, if we look at the big picture, from 2008 to 2023, MS Dhoni was the undisputed captain of CSK. He led them in a mind-blowing 235 matches. And under his leadership, they won 5 IPL titles and 2 Champions League T20 trophies. He was the constant, the rock, the heart and soul of the team.
The ultimate captain.
Exactly. But then right before the 2022 season started, Dhoni stepped down as captain. He handed the reins over to Ravindra Jadeja. It was a huge moment, and a lot of people saw it as the beginning of a new era for CSK.
I remember that. And how did that transition go? It felt a little bumpy, if I remember correctly.
Bumpy might be putting it mildly. That transition was, well, It was rough. Under Jadeja, CSK had a really tough start to the season. They only won 2 out of their first 8 matches. And there were even reports that the pressure of captaincy was affecting Jadeja's own performance. The team just didn't seem to have the same clarity in their decision-making on the field.
So how did they resolve that situation?
After those 8 games, Jadeja decided to step down as captain. He said he wanted to focus on his own game and asked Dhoni to take over again. And Dhoni, being the ultimate team player, agreed. CSK did improve a bit after Dhoni came back, but they still ended up finishing 9th that season. So even Dhoni's magic couldn't fully turn things around.
Wow, a mid-season captaincy change like that must be so disruptive for the team. And then before the 2024 season, there was another captaincy change, right? Ruturaj Gaikwad took over.
Yeah, that's right. After they won the title in 2023 with Dhoni as captain, they announced Gaikwad as the new captain for the 2024 season. They presented it as a carefully planned succession, with Dhoni himself seemingly initiating it. The idea was that Gaikwad would be the next leader, and they even said that he'd been identified as a potential captain years before. Throughout that season, Dhoni kept emphasizing that Gaikwad was calling the shots on the field. But even with this planned transition, CSK didn't make it to the playoffs in 2024.
So we see this pattern. Dhoni steps down, a handpicked successor takes over, there are challenges, and then Dhoni returns. It really shows you just how incredibly important Dhoni's leadership is to CSK. It seems almost impossible to move on from him, even with a plan in place.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. The 2022 situation with Jadeja and now this in 2025, it really highlights the irreplaceable value that Dhoni brings to the team. It's his tactical brilliance, his calm presence, his deep understanding of CSK's culture. It's everything. And when the team is under pressure, it seems like they always believe that going back to Dhoni is the best solution. But this pattern does raise some big questions about their long-term leadership strategy. And what about the impact on future captains? How does this affect their confidence in development?
It's a fascinating dilemma. Okay, so before Dhoni's epic return this time around, how was CSK actually performing on the field? I know you said they were struggling in 9th place.
Yeah, their start to the 2025 season was definitely not what they were hoping for. Under Gaikwad, they only managed 1 win and 4 losses. That 1 win was a big one. They beat their arch rivals, the Mumbai Indians, in the very first match of the season. But then they lost the next 4 games in a row.
Ouch, that's a tough streak. So where were they struggling specifically? What were the problem areas?
It was a combination of things, unfortunately. Their batting was definitely a big issue. They had a misfiring top order, as some commentators called it. And losing Gaikwad, their most consistent run scorer, is a huge blow. They just seemed to lack consistency throughout the batting lineup. The middle order wasn't firing, and they had trouble chasing down targets. Even Dhoni's position in the batting order came under scrutiny. Some people were saying that they needed his power hitting higher up the order, especially in those crucial final overs. They even suffered their biggest ever home defeat in terms of runs against RCB. That really showed how much they were struggling.
That doesn't sound good at all. What about their bowling? How were they doing in that department?
Their bowling attack wasn't much better, unfortunately. They lacked the consistency and the penetration that we're used to seeing from CSK. Some bowlers had their moments, but as a unit, they just couldn't take wickets regularly, and they gave up a lot of runs. There were also questions about how Gaikwad was using his spin bowlers. Some key spinners weren't bowling their full quota of overs at important times, and that raised some eyebrows.
And what about their fielding? Usually, CSK is known for its sharp fielding.
Yeah, that's a good point. Their fielding was actually identified as a major area for improvement. Gaikwad himself admitted after one of their losses that poor fielding had cost them dearly. They were dropping catches, and that's always a killer. In one match against Punjab Kings, one of the opening batsmen was dropped multiple times early on, and he went on to score a century and win the match for Punjab. Mistakes like that can really hurt a team's momentum.
So it sounds like they were having problems everywhere. Batting, bowling, fielding. It was a team-wide struggle. But you said that Gaikwad was still contributing with the bat even though he was injured.
That's right. He was clearly playing through pain, but he was still a really important part of their batting lineup. So losing him for the rest of the season is a massive setback, especially for their already struggling batting order. His captaincy was being questioned because of the team's performance, but the injury gives them a reason to make a change that doesn't feel like they're blaming Gaikwad.
Right. It takes the pressure off him a bit. So let's talk about the reactions to Dhoni's return. When the news broke, what was the feeling across the cricket world? It must have been electric.
Oh, it was huge. The news just sent waves of excitement and nostalgia through the whole cricket community. Let's start with the reactions from the CSK management and the coaching staff. Coach Fleming was the main voice. He confirmed the news, said he was really disappointed for Gaikwad, but emphasized that Dhoni was ready and willing to take over. And of course, Fleming kept using that uncapped player phrase, which, as we discussed, became a big talking point. He also said that CSK would be looking for a replacement batter to fill Gaikwad's spot.
What about the reactions from the CSK players, past and present? I can only imagine how excited they must be.
The CSK alumni were definitely some of the most vocal and enthusiastic. Ambati Rayudu, a real CSK legend, was super excited. He talked about Dhoni's almost magical aura and how much he believes in Dhoni's ability to turn things around and lead them to the playoffs. He said, and I quote, "I will always be a Thala's fan."
Preach, Thala forever.
Right. Another former CSK player, Robin Uthappa, had actually suggested, even before this whole captaincy change, that Dhoni should bat higher up in the order. He thought it would give CSK a better chance of winning. And get this, amidst the team's losing streak, Ravindra Jadeja posted a picture on social media of himself with Dhoni, and the caption was, "Things will change." It was super cryptic, and it got all the CSK fans buzzing, wondering what was going on.
Ooh, a little foreshadowing. What about the commentators and the experts? They always have such diverse opinions. What were their takes on this?
They definitely had a wide range of reactions. Harsha Bhogle, the legendary commentator, said that while Dhoni's return is a big deal, losing Gaikwad's batting might be an even bigger problem for CSK. He also questioned whether Dhoni still has the same drive and hunger, but acknowledged that this move would energize the fans. His biggest concern was the same as Fleming's. How will CSK replace Gaikwad in the batting order? Sourav Ganguly, a former India captain himself, was very strong in his opinion. He said that MS Dhoni as CSK captain is a completely different animal and that if Dhoni is playing, he should be the captain. He highlighted Dhoni's power hitting and his deep understanding of the game. Piyush Chawla, a great leg spinner, said that Dhoni's leadership could really help CSK's spin bowlers, especially Jadeja, get their confidence back. Sanjay Bangar, a former batting coach, was more skeptical. He said that it would be a tough road for CSK to make the playoffs, even with Dhoni back as captain. Simon Dule had criticized Dhoni's low batting position before, and Lisa Sthalekar said that Dhoni's return as captain would bring an incredible energy and excitement to the team and the fans.
Rahul Lear, a cricket analyst for Wisden, called Dhoni the best and only option as a short-term captain to stabilize the team. But he also expressed concerns about CSK relying too heavily on an aging player and their apparent lack of a solid plan for the future.
So, a lot of different opinions, from pure excitement to more cautious analysis. And what about the fans? CSK fans are known for their passionate support. How did they react?
The fans went absolutely wild. Social media was flooded with messages of pure joy and nostalgia. Hashtags like Captain Cool and Thala were trending worldwide. There was a massive wave of hope that Dhoni's return would be the spark that ignites a turnaround. But mixed with the excitement, there was also empathy and disappointment for Gaikwad. Some fans even said that they should be careful not to celebrate too much out of respect for Gaikwad. The fact that Dhoni has stepped down and then returned as captain multiple times was a big topic of conversation, and it even became the source of some hilarious memes. And of course, everyone was talking about Dhoni being an uncapped captain, but some fans were also realistic. They said that while Dhoni's leadership is amazing, it might not be enough to fix all of CSK's batting and bowling issues.
It sounds like CSK fans have been on an emotional roller coaster. So let's dig into the strategic side of things. What kind of impact do you think this captaincy change will have on the team's dynamics and their morale?
It's almost guaranteed that team morale will get a huge boost. Dhoni's return brings stability, a sense of calm, and a renewed belief, especially after those 4 losses in a row. Like Ambati Rayudu said, Dhoni's presence alone can be incredibly motivating. But it's important to be realistic. A new captain isn't a magic solution. It won't automatically fix their performance problems, especially their fragile batting lineup and their inconsistent bowling.
That's such a crucial point. Strategically, how do you think things might change now that Dhoni is back in charge? What will his approach be like?
I think we'll see a return of Captain Cool Dhoni. That super composed demeanor under pressure. He's known for making smart tactical decisions and backing his players, even when they're struggling. He's also a master at managing spin bowlers, which has been a key part of CSK's success over the years. So I think we might see some shifts in their bowling tactics and field placements areas where Dhoni has always been very sharp. But their biggest strategic challenge is going to be filling the hole in their batting order left by Gaikwad's injury. Fleming said they'd look at internal options first. So some names that come to mind are Rahul Tripathi, Sheikh Rashid, Vansh Pitedi. Maybe they'll even move some of their all-rounders like Sam Curran or Shivam Dubey up the order. They could also look for a replacement player from outside the team, but that takes time. And then there's a question of Dhoni's own batting position. Will he move himself up the order to give them more firepower? Or will he stay lower down to manage his fitness? The fact that he struggled to finish some close games recently makes this decision even more complicated.
It's like he's got this huge weight on his shoulders now to lead the team and potentially score more runs. But this whole situation, having to bring Dhoni back mid-season for the second time in 4 years, doesn't it suggest that maybe CSK hasn't planned well for the future?
You're absolutely right. It does point to a lack of preparation for a leadership transition. They keep having to turn back to Dhoni, which indicates that there might be a leadership vacuum on the team. The fact that they didn't really succeed with Jadeja in 2022 and haven't considered someone like Ashwin, who has leadership experience, reinforces that idea. This constant reliance on Dhoni might be preventing other players from developing as leaders.
It's a tough spot for them. Dhoni is so brilliant that it's hard to imagine CSK without him. But they haven't really created a plan for when he's gone. So let's talk about Dhoni himself. At 43 years old, what kind of captain and player is he now?
It's pretty rare for someone to be playing at this level at 43. There have been concerns about his knees, and Fleming has admitted that they're keeping him lower down the order to protect him and reduce the amount of running he has to do between the wickets. Some people have noticed that he's not quite as quick behind the stumps as he used to be either. In terms of his batting, before he became captain again, he had scored 103 runs in 5 matches, mainly batting at number 7 or 9. His strike rate was over 150, which is excellent. We've seen glimpses of his classic power hitting, but he's also had some trouble finishing close games. So there's this debate about where he should bat, balancing his effectiveness with his fitness, and then there's the whole uncapped thing. Even though it's technical, it could affect how CSK approaches player retention in the future.
And the big question that always comes up with Dhoni is, of course, his future. Everyone is always speculating about when he'll retire. Does this return to captaincy give us any clues about that?
It definitely adds another layer to the story. Before the season started, Dhoni himself said that he knows he needs to adapt as he gets older. There are rumors that he might need surgery after the season for a muscle tear, and that could determine whether he keeps playing. This unexpected return to captaincy could be a couple of things. Maybe it's a final chapter, one last hurrah as captain. Or, if the team really needs him and he feels good physically, maybe he'll play for a bit longer. What the CSK CEO said before about Gaikwad being the long-term successor, well, this seems a lot more complicated now. CSK is in a tricky situation. They want to make the most of Dhoni while they can, but they also need to start thinking about life after Dhoni. And the fact that they've had to go back to him so many times just shows how hard it is for them to move on and create a solid plan for the future. They're stuck between wanting to win now and preparing for what's next.
It's an incredibly interesting situation with so many different threads weaving together. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what would you say is the real significance of this moment for CSK?
This is way more than just a simple captaincy change. It's connected to everything that's happened with CSK in recent years, and it has big implications for their future. The similarities to what happened with Jadeja in 2022 are really striking. They keep going back to Dhoni when things get tough, which makes you wonder about their long-term planning. Do they have a real vision for leadership beyond Dhoni?
And the challenge for Dhoni right now is enormous. The team is struggling, and now they've lost a key player in Gaikwad.
Absolutely. In the short term, it's all about whether Dhoni can work his magic and turn this team around. Can he add another incredible chapter to his already legendary story? But there's another question that's just as important. What if he can't? What happens to CSK then?
And thinking about the bigger picture, beyond this season, does this mean that they'll keep relying on Dhoni until he finally decides to retire? Or will this finally force them to come up with a real plan for the future?
Those are the big questions that CSK and their fans are wrestling with. And it really gets you thinking. We've looked so deeply into CSK's leadership and their reliance on Dhoni. And it raises a question that applies to so many organizations and teams. How do you move on from an irreplaceable leader? Is a smooth and successful transition even possible? It's something for all of us to think about.